That's the one thing I always forget since we're at it. Okay, it's 12:32 here, German time. Welcome everyone to the first of many events in our Data+Women Lunch Series. Today we're hosting Anna McDougall, but before we start, I just want to say very few words about the initiative in general. So Data+Women Germany, thank you all for finding your way here, but what are we even doing? So the organizing team is myself, Heidi Kalber, and my colleague Julia Büchting. Julia will be hosting the upcoming events. Today is stuck with me. And Data+Women Germany is an initiative, a local chapter of a global initiative that aims at giving people the opportunity to learn and network in the area of data analytics. We want to enable people to share their knowledge and their experiences. And also, our very big aim is to unite people of any gender to promote diversity in the data community. Because why any gender when it's called Data+Women? Because it's data plus women, it's not data minus men. So we do welcome everybody, but we make it a point to highlight especially women, which is why we have Anna McDougall here. So thank you so much for being here today, Anna. Do you want to tell us a couple of words about yourself? What's your life story?
My life story, oh gosh. Yeah, I had a very non-traditional path into tech. So I'll start where I am now. So right now I'm one of the directors of product and engineering for Axel Springer National Media and Tech. We are like, if you're German, you probably know of Axel Springer, the big media company. They own many different companies, and one of those companies is us. And we look after the kind of German needs, I suppose, in terms of websites, apps, video streaming, advertising, all these kinds of things. And I am one of the directors there. My unofficial title is technical advocate. So what I do is I aim to understand everything our 33 developer teams are doing and then kind of transmit it out to the world. And then internally, I also work on diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging topics. So I also act as kind of like an advocate for the technical staff up to the management team. So I advocate in both directions, up to management and then externally out to the developer community. So that's what I do now. My background was not in tech. I was really into tech when I was a kid. I learned HTML when I was 8 years old. That was 1995 for those playing at home. And the internet was very different back then. I also did computer studies at high school, but I dropped it because I was the only girl in the class and just didn't feel welcome. I had other topics I was good at, so I thought, okay, well, this is fun, but I have other places I'll be more comfortable. And so I went off to uni, studied media and communications with a major in journalism and Spanish. Yes, how is this getting back to tech? It will. I worked for a few years in marketing and project management, kind of got some corporate experience under my belt, and ended up working in marketing actually for Opera Australia, who is the company that puts on operas at the Opera House, the famous one in Sydney. And I worked there for a few years, and through that, I started kind of taking up singing as a hobby, and eventually actually decided to make that a career. So I had this huge career switch from corporate world into opera. I did that for 7 years, and then I was like, okay, that was fun. What's next? And at that point, I also had a newborn, so I was thinking, okay, what's going to be satisfying to me? What's also going to provide me with some stability? Where am I going to feel some impact? Because impact is like the big thing for me. And so I rediscovered, I should say, the world of programming and became a software engineer. And from there, moved into my current position. So that's the very, very short version of my very strange career journey. But that's how I got where I am today.
That's fantastic. Wow, that's a load to unpack there. So for anybody who now has a lot of question marks in their eyes, if you go to the chat button, we also have a Q&A feature. So just drop your questions there, and we'll definitely get to them. So do make liberal use of that. So obviously you're super enthusiastic about tech. today. So what is maybe one topic that recently caught your attention that you're very focused on now? And either I lost my connection or we lost Anna. I'm not entirely sure. Let me check. I'm still here. Okay, good. Well, well, bad, but at least I know it's not on my end. Okay, so she's out for a second, but you heard Anna has a super, okay, she's trying to refresh. Amazing. So you've heard Anna has a super colorful background. Again, if you have any questions, drop them in the Q&A.
Okay,
And you're back. You're back. I'm not sure whether you heard my last
No,
question.
I didn't. I heard the end of it. I warned Heidi about this. I said our office like has this huge space in the middle, and like the Wi-Fi connection sometimes just like disappears. So it's really, really exciting in situations like this. So
But you're back.
it's a live
Yeah.
show, folks. So.
Yeah, no worries. No, I was saying that you're obviously super enthusiastic about
Yes.
tech. So is there like, what is one topic that maybe recently caught your attention?
Yes. So we're talking about data. So to give you an idea, I mentioned before that I'm one of the 7 directors that we have, I think. Gosh. And so each of them, not me, each of them has their own department. And one of our departments is data specifically, like just data. And as you can imagine, there are a lot of people, a lot of projects happening there. I mean, to give you an idea, built.de, which is our biggest publication, that receives over 3 million unique users per day. So this is like a lot of information that we have to comb through. We obviously have a data lake where we store a lot of information. We have teams who, of course, have to then make sense of it and do something with it, because there's not much point having all this information and not doing anything. And of course, we want to make the experience on our sites as useful and interesting for our users as possible. So one of the things I guess that we often talk about, we have actually we have a team lead who does a talk on this topic in more detail, and he calls the talk "Not All Clicks Are Created Equal," and it's basically about how we do what's called auto curation. So for those who aren't in the media industry and are like, what the F is auto curation? Basically, the idea is we have parts of our websites which are automatically which, how do I put this? It automatically shows different news articles based on what we think someone is going to click on or what we think someone is going to engage with the most. And so, of course, as you can imagine, there are a lot of different aspects to that. And as you say, not all clicks are created equal. We can't just say, okay, which article has the most click through rate? Okay, boom, that goes to the top, because in the media we have above the fold, that's everything that's before you scroll, and then we have below the fold, which is after you scroll past the first screen. Anything above the fold is always going to get more clicks. 100%. Like anything people can click on easily is always going to be the most popular. So there has to be an offset of that. The other thing we have to consider with auto curation is plus articles versus free articles. So as with most media publications, we do have a paywall on some of our content, but not all of it. And that paywall to us is basically like an invitation to the reader to subscribe. So the question is, we obviously want people to subscribe, but we also have to balance that with how many people are actually reading. And we want people to read, not only because we want them to engage with our media, but also because that's where advertising revenue comes from. And so there's like this balance, okay? We want people to want a subscription. We want people to be encouraged to get a subscription. We also want them to just engage with us, even if they can't get a subscription. So then what is the balance that we show them between plus articles and free articles. There's also, of course, the factor of time. One of the things that the media deals with that, for example, Amazon doesn't, is timeliness. And by that, I mean each article probably has a shelf life, if we're being generous, of 24 hours, but more realistically of like 2 to 4 hours in the online world. So we need to get information about how popular an article is in a very, very short space of time, and we have to be able to act on that quickly. It's not like, as I said, it's not like with Amazon or even Netflix or something like that, Spotify, where we can collect data over a long time and it's mostly evergreen content that we can kind of re-show, and we can really look at what the user is doing and then be like, here's this article from 3 months ago that you'll love. Like, no, if we did that, people would be like, why am I reading this? So there's also like all these things to consider. And actually, I do have a, hang on, I have a slide I can show you. I'll just show you one because that might be nice if I can work out how to do this. Sorry. I'm always not very good at this stuff,
For
but
me, the
let's
button
try.
is at the bottom in the middle, and then you can choose like a
Yes, I
specific
think
window.
you
Yeah, there we go.
can you see this one?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. So like we have click probability is not just about, of course, the article, it's also about the user. Know that a user is coming to our website and let's say only reading Bundesliga, like soccer news, then we're not going to recommend to them like some article about the state of the economy or something. Like it's just, they're not going to click it. The plus quota I mentioned before, that also comes into what the user wants. So if someone has spent a lot of time on our website and we've seen them come back and we're kind of thinking, okay, this person's here a lot. They are reading articles about cars and watches. They probably have like disposable income. Okay. They have a very high chance of subscribing. So we will then show them more plus articles than free articles. Editorial standards. So this is the other thing that often happens. There is kind of naturally sometimes a conflict between what the algorithm wants and what the editors want, you know, especially when they've got a piece they've worked really hard for and they're really proud of it. They want that to go to the top, even if it might not be the most hot clickbaity article that is around. You know, they really want people to see it. So we also need to take into account what the journalists want. And then regional content is the other thing. So we kind of add in information about people's local area because, you know, location, 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 that's often something that's super interesting to them. So I think that's probably like the most relevant thing that we're working on at the moment. It definitely is challenging. I am glad that I'm not the person who actually has to work on it. It's very interesting. Like I'm interested in that sense, but I can imagine kind of the balance between these. Actually, there's one other thing that kind of here we go, this one here. This is the kind of the curation system logic that kind of shows you, oops, no, that wasn't, okay, that was interesting. Did you see that? Okay, well, we'll just have to look at it here. Which is like kind of how the different things go together. And as you can see, the very last thing before it goes out to the world is to check for journalistic quality. So that is like the editors essentially have the most power in this scenario. And that's, you know, that's because in the end, news isn't, and in my opinion also shouldn't be, fully and only based on how clicky it is. There are many, many other things to be taken into account. And this trend score here is also about the clicks. So if something under the fold is getting way more clicks than something above the fold, that should trigger something in the system that says, oh, hang on, this article might actually be way more interesting because it's also in a worse position. Or maybe if you're even getting the same number of clicks, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's what I would say is the topic that that we are constantly looking at, reviewing, going over. I should also say this is not like 100% of our news. This is, I think at the moment, it's like don't quote me on this one because I'm not sure I 100% remember this, but I think it's somewhere between 10 to 20% of the article previews are auto curated. So the breaking news always goes to the top. Huge features always go to the top. There are We don't have full control. I think if we did, the numbers might go up, but the journalists and the editors wouldn't be happy. So again, you've got to balance things. But yeah, I would say that's the biggest topic, which hopefully is interesting to other people as it is to me.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing. Um, yeah, I noticed recently, like every time I go on LinkedIn and one of your posts pops up, I see that you're speaking at like another event, and I'm amazed. Like Anna is a recent TEDx speaker, which is super cool. Like that's the
Yes,
hype.
very recent. She's not joking. It was
I know.
Saturday, so like literally 5 days ago.
So so tell me, what is it that makes you so passionate about public speaking?
Yeah. It's funny. I think it's what I mentioned earlier. It's about impact. I I very strongly believe that women in particular need to raise their voices more. Um, I think you already know, Heidi, but I do these like weekly, and I'm not here promoting it. It's free, so I don't make any money from it. It's not like a business thing, but I do like these weekly kind of women's networking sessions. They're just like to 10 people, and I do those just to encourage women in their career goals. We call them women in tech career chats, and they're very nice. And actually, this week we're talking about speaking up, and that it was occurring to me, like as we were having these chats, and as I talked to a lot of women in tech, a lot of them kind of say, "Oh, I wish I could get up there, but I just don't know how." And how do you find the courage to like speak up in meetings, or like how do I get enough like encouragement to ask for a promotion, or like these are the kind of questions that kind of come up. And I really do believe that just being there, like just me being on stages and me being very public about what I know and what I don't know. For example, like I can talk about auto curation in this high level perspective, but I'm not a data engineer. Like I can't tell you the exact algorithms we're using, but I can at least give you an overview. And I'm very public about what I understand and what I don't. And I feel like this is a role model to a lot of people, so they can actually see, okay, it's fine as a woman to get up there. No one's going to laugh you out of the room. No one's going to boo you. People are fine with you knowing some things and not knowing other things. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to be the most amazing like engineer or scientist in the entire world. You can just get up and have a chat about what you're learning. Um, so there's that side of it. It is also a thing where I really do believe that tech is the future of everything. I don't feel like this is a controversial opinion. And I want to be part of it. It really is also just excitement. And like, I want to be out there. I want to be digging into it. I want to be helping people discover it. So, for example, I've started doing workshops for companies and doing public speaking, uh, like kind of privately, like as a private kind of side business for companies as well, because I really do believe in connecting the quote unquote average person with what is happening in tech. Um, so yeah, there are a lot of reasons, but it does come back down to that thing I said earlier, which is impact. Like I want to feel like I'm having impact both societally and for women specifically, and in diversity as well, generally. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And you mentioned that you're also um, like trying to give confidence about being wrong, not maybe being the
Hmm.
smartest person in the room. And I find that's an attitude that
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily come easy.
Mm.
And I saw that you recently had a very interesting take on imposter syndrome. Would you
Yeah,
care to share your thoughts on that?
very gladly. I have a bit of a different take on imposter syndrome because and sorry, Heidi, this will all be very familiar to you, but I get really annoyed when someone goes to, let's say, a senior or a mentor or something like that, and they say, "Oh, I'm really struggling with imposter syndrome," and the senior or the mentor says, "Oh, it's fine. Everyone feels this way. And like, it's sure it's not nearly as bad as you think. And, don't worry about it. And, you'll be fine." And I'm like, okay, maybe for some people that's enough. Okay. But for me, that doesn't, like, I'm a very practical person. Like if I go to someone talking about these things, I'm looking for some way to kind of handle the emotion. Like how do I actually get better? How do I actually deal with this? Like not just sit there being like, oh fuck, I feel imposter syndrome. Sorry, excuse me. Like I like I feel imposter syndrome, and now I'm sitting here feeling imposter syndrome, and I've been told this is normal, so I guess I'll just keep sitting here feeling imposter syndrome. Like to me, it's not productive. It doesn't get you anywhere, and it doesn't actually help deal with the core of the issue, which is this feeling of that you're not as smart as you thought you were. Yeah. So to me, imposter syndrome is often a symptom of a healthy ego. I don't mean ego in the negative sense of like, oh, I'm the best person around. I mean ego in terms of like you know what you can do. You know that you're a smart person. You know you're a capable person, and you want to do well. Right. This kind of just this base level of confidence that hopefully most people have in terms of their intelligence. And when you're faced with a situation, for example, where that is called into question, where suddenly someone mentions a term and everyone around you is going, yes, yes, that term, I know that term, and that is a really good point. And you're sitting there thinking, what is this? Am I an idiot? Like, why don't I know this? I'm a smart person. And then it starts spiraling, right? And that's where the imposter syndrome comes in, where you're like, I should know this and I don't. And I'm like, why am I here? I don't earn my paycheck, and like, I don't understand anything. And it, like, all these negative thoughts kind of start snowballing. And to me, as I said, this is a symptom of a healthy ego, right? Of a healthy ego where you are saying, I should know this, I should feel competent, and I usually do, and now I don't. And why is this the case? And then you start the place where the problem happens, that's the healthy spot. The place where the problem happens is where you then start blaming yourself. And you start saying, I am intrinsically bad. I am an intrinsically unintelligent person. You start blaming yourself for this feeling. Instead, my argument is that you can be the worst one in the room, and it is fine. In fact, it's a good thing, right? So for me, I like to try to switch whenever I've had this feeling, whenever I have this like rising feeling of panic, like I don't understand what everyone's talking about. What am I doing here? Oh, you know, I like to try to just kind of like stop myself and go, okay, you're feeling imposter syndrome right now. Like you're feeling concerned. You're a bit, just kind of put it to the side and think, what will actually help this feeling? Will just wallowing in the feeling help? Probably not. You'll probably just keep feeling it. You'll keep snowballing, right? Instead, I like to think, okay, worst case scenario. Let's go worst case. I am the worst one in the room and I know nothing and everyone else knows everything. Okay? I mean, it's obviously very unlikely to be true, but it helps me. This is the thought exercise that helps me. And I then think, if that is the case, if I am the worst person in the room and everyone else knows more than me, I now have an opportunity to learn from them. I am blessed to have a room full of people who can help make me better. This is actually a really good thing. This is a really good opportunity, because if Heidi hadn't mentioned, I don't know, Docker containers in this meeting, I would never have known that I had a gap in my knowledge. I would have gone on happy, blissful, and never known that I had this gap that I need to fill. And then that could have come up years from now when I really, really should have known about it. But right now, I don't. And this is a great opportunity to fill it. That's a great opportunity to fill that gap and learn from the people around me. So when someone says, I feel like I'm the worst one in the room, my reaction isn't, oh, no, I'm sure it's fine. I don't know you and your team. I can't say that realistically, can I? Maybe you are the worst one in the room. But what I can say is, okay, so you're the worst one in the room. Let's start from that assumption. Like, so what? Like, now let's do something about it. Let's learn. Let's get better. And so it's like flipping. It's flipping the feeling of insufficiency and turning it into, okay, this is a learning opportunity. And if you do that, I promise you will feel better about your imposter syndrome by actually tackling the topic and actually asking questions. And that's the only way I've ever felt better from imposter syndrome, or this kind of feeling of being not enough, is always by actually just going and doing something about it. Feel the emotions, of course, be aware of the emotions. Like, there's nothing wrong with feeling bad sometimes. We're all a little sad sometimes. It's cool. But in the end, the best thing to do is to actually try to address those gaps. And then it does actually feel better. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I love that. I love that approach. Amazing. Anna, do you want to spend maybe like a minute talking about that amazing book you happen to write about
Oh,
how to get into
I
tech?
didn't know we were going to mention my book. Yeah, I
Sorry,
mean,
I
I don't
didn't
think
warn
it's
you.
I don't think it's necessarily so relevant probably for the women in here, but maybe it is, if there are some career changes here. So obviously, with my really weird background going from opera to tech, I've had a lot of people ask me about that change over the years. That's kind of what the TEDx talk was about as well. It is definitely not a traditional path. And I took that traditional path. As I was taking that traditional path, let me back up. As I was taking that non-traditional path, I was sharing a lot of what I was learning and experiencing online. Back when Twitter was Twitter, I was talking a lot about it on there, and I got a really big following. I had a really big community, and I learned a lot what works, but also honestly what doesn't work. And some of the same questions started coming up. What programming language should I learn? How can I learn when I've got a full-time job? I've learned all these skills, but no one's calling me back for my first interview. What do I do? Or what kind of projects should I have for my portfolio? Like, how do I network? Like, these kinds of questions kind of started coming up over and over and over again. And eventually I just went, you know what? There are a lot of people asking me these questions. Probably a lot of people want to know the answers. So, and I wanted to know those answers when I started. So I basically did the classic thing of writing what I knew and writing the book I wished I'd had at the beginning. And I put it all together into a book, and it's called You Belong in Tech: How to Go from Zero Programming Knowledge to Hired. And that is, yeah, basically a very practical, it's not like, you can do it, you can succeed, woo, you're amazing. Like, it's not just a book of like motivational quotes. There's a little bit of that in the introduction, but after that I let it go. And then it's mostly very practical. Like, how do you actually structure a learning plan? How do you actually apply to jobs? How do you actually step by step prepare a package, like a CV, cover letter? What do you do? Like, when people say to customize your cover letter, what does that mean? How do you do that? So I try to really make it very, very clear and very, very practical, and it's packed. It's 60,000 words of gold, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I started reading it. I didn't manage to finish it yet, but it's definitely a good book. So I can recommend that to anyone who's looking for a career change, or maybe you have someone in your network who's looking for a career change.
Yeah.
Definitely recommend the book. Okay, we are at time. Anna, what's the best way for people to follow you and your journey?
Oh yeah. I think right now I'm not so active on Twitter/X anymore. So I think LinkedIn is probably the easiest way for people to reach me. I'm Anna J. McDougall on there. You can also find me on Instagram, where I also post like kind of funny reels from time to time. So if you want to see me collapsing onto a bed in exhaustion, there's that. Um, or like doing weird dances, also a thing. Two are the best way to contact me would be LinkedIn and Instagram. Those are where I'm the most active for sure. And both of them is Anna J. Is Anna ANNA J like the letter, and then McDougall McDougall. That's it. I'm there.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Anna. And everybody,
Thank
if you
you.
liked this kind of format, as I mentioned, we are starting this as a lunch series. So do feel free to bring your lunch, have your lunch during this time. We are having it on Wednesdays, usually on the second Wednesday of the month. And we already have 4 events coming up. You
Woo!
can sign up for all of these under the QR code on the left-hand side or tiny.cc/datawomengermany. So looking forward to seeing you there. You will not necessarily be seeing me there. As I mentioned, my co-lead Julia will be hosting those events, but you are all most welcome to attend. All right. Again, thank you so much, Anna.
Thank
All the
you.
best for your journey. Maybe I'll see you on the train later. Who knows? Uh,
Maybe.
and with that, yeah, happy afternoon, everybody.
See you.